Hey everyone, are you ready for McGruff AI to take a bite out of crime? You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome back here to Techstrong Gang. It's Alan Schimmel, and we've got a great Techstrong Gang today. I told you we're going to have McGruff, the AI crime dog. If you know who that is, you're of a certain age. We've got more, a lot of AI stuff as usual. God, man, it just sucks the oxygen out of everything. For good reason, perhaps, though. It is pretty big. Let me introduce you to our gang for today, though. We got a great gang of people to talk about stuff. First, we'll start off out west. He looks like he's up on top of the Golden Gate Bridge again, watching over his vast domain. Our Silicon Valley man in the know, John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you, man?
I notice anything different?
Yeah, I could tell. You look like you either got a facelift or a new camera. I'm not quite sure.
I got both. But don't tell anybody. Yeah, no, thank you. You send it to me and we set it up. So it's
it's a huge difference, John.
I know. Sorry about being in the cave.
No. Hey, don't worry about it. But you look fantastic.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. All right, moving over from Silicon Valley to Denver. Well, somewhere near Denver, right? Was that northeast Denver? But you take the Northwest Parkway to go from you to
Actually,
Boulder.
No, that's on the other side of I-25. But you're close. You're in the neighborhood.
Right. It's been a while since I've been in Boulder, Mitch. Anyway, he's back from...
You'll be asking me for directions, by the way, but that's a whole nother issue.
No, let's not go there. But anyway, weren't you just out in Silicon Valley, though, at AI Infrastructure Day?
Yeah, I was out in Santa Clara at Google talking about AI infrastructure, some of the great things that they're doing. We talk about some of that in reports, some great Kubernetes work that they're doing too. So some things they launched at Google Cloud Next. So Kubernetes, man, love that stuff.
Very cool. Just a quick blurb, on Techstrong TV today, we will be live streaming. I guess it's day 2. Maybe it's day 3. No, day 2 of AI Infrastructure Day. So stay tuned for that. Speaking of AI, she is our editor for Techstrong AI, coming at us from Ohio, Sulagna Saha. Hi, Sulagna. How are you?
Hi, Alan. I'm good. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on here, and thank you very much. Moving on from Sulagna, we're going to go to, he looks like he's in his natural element, the data center there. Our friend JP Morgenthal. Hey, JP, I don't know if we ever really told people kind of your background. Why don't you give them a little bit of a JP history, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure. Happy to. Thank you. It's a long, sordid history that has taken me, from software engineering through Wall Street consulting to .com startups and huge managed service providers as a lead around services, and back through into now a entrepreneurial effort again, providing AI consulting. So it's and along the way, a lesson learned from a friend of our all, Dave Linthicum: never stop being an analyst. So, I actually was a legitimate analyst, industry analyst. I got paid to be an industry analyst. But even when I wasn't specifically an industry analyst, I acted in that role because I think it's important to put some context around this technology stuff for people, pragmatism. I think we'll hit a little bit of that in today's discussion with the AI. And speaking of the Kubernetes stuff, Mitch, go out there and look at my hot take from yesterday on Kubernetes, in which I took on the, Kubernetes is ridiculous, PaaS is satisfactory, and issue again, including my 2014 post about why PaaS is the way you should be going. So, you may love Kubernetes. I'm not. I think Kubernetes is a great tool for PaaS providers. So.
Oh, you and I should have a good point counterpoint argument. JP.
I love
Stay
that.
tuned. We're bringing it to you. The thriller in vanilla. All right.
We will put that on a future show for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike's head's spinning. Speaking of Mike, no joy in Mudville, Mike. They lost again.
No, but as I was sitting here listening to JP, I realized that I've known him forever. So I'm suddenly feeling a little older than I was a minute ago.
Well, you're both in the prime of your lives. What are you worried about? Anyway, Mike Vizard, our chief content officer.
He needs to spend more time in Florida, Alan.
Yeah. Well, no, he did. He had enough of it and packed the wagon and moved back up.
I'm on.
Anyway, let's jump into today's first topic, which is, as I said, AI takes a bite out of crime. Mike, what is this one?
Well, it turns out the police department around the country and a few other places have figured out that they can start using AI to engage people who are probably thinking about doing something, shall we say, illegal online, including people who might be trying to cultivate children for various illicit activities. John has a story on all of this, but John, like most things with AI, there's a good and a bad here. Walk us through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the headline that you circulated was AI takes bite out of crime, but I think this is maybe a bigger bite than most of us would like. There was a investigative report by an operation called 404 Media. They did this for Wired magazine, so I'm going to give them all credit. They looked into a company called Massive Blue. So they're a New York-based company that has a product called Overwatch. It's being pitched to police departments. And basically what it is they're deploying these virtual agents that infiltrate and engage criminal networks across channels. So maybe chats, email, what have you. And what they've done is they've created this, as you said, Mike, to prevent things like human trafficking or even to protect schools. But what's happening also is that some of the police departments, according to this report, which cited a couple of examples, are looking beyond the suspects, the usual suspects, and are looking at quote unquote college protesters, radicalized political activists, and they're looking into it for the case of immigration related activity. And some of the fictional characters that were created, these personas, the AI personas, included this 36-year-old child-free divorced woman who's outspoken, lonely, and body positive, who's also involved in baking and activism. There was a 14-year-old boy who's child trafficking AI persona, an AI pimp persona, what have you, escorts, external recruiter for protesters, college protester. In a sense, it's kind of a big brother. It's morphing beyond the original intent. And along these lines, we've come across some other examples beyond this one company. Palantir has assumed an increased role with ICE to track down individuals, provide logistical supports in mass deportation efforts. This is, of course, the big data analysis company co-founded by Peter Thiel. Another company called Geo Group has assisted the Trump administration in tracking immigrants, according to a New York Times story. So, and again, I don't object to the use of AI agents to find legitimate bad guys for the original use, but this seems to be expanding or morphing into things like infiltrating protest movements. And it was a fascinating story, and it just kind of, again, shows you what AI can do and how far it can go, good and bad.
Mike, I just...
Mr. Legal Eagle, take it.
No, I'm not going to give you a legal opinion here. I'm just going to give you some plain good old Bill Clinton style common sense. Don't blame the tool, blame the fascist.
That's an excellent point. Where I was going to take this is I really want to divide the story up into two parts. The first is the technology. We are all struggling to understand this AI stuff, but I think this is a great archetype for what this technology does well, right? It represents personas based on an amalgam of voices that it has seen, okay? So this is what generative AI technology really does well. I know we hear a lot about using it to vibe code, but at the end of the day, this is the sweet spot for generative AI is creating and emulating that different creative voices from the history of training. Okay. Now, the second part of this is how is it being used? And I think Alan just splendidly, gave a representation of, what we should be thinking when we see these technologies in play.
I have a question though on the legal side, so I will toss this to Alan. Where is that fine line between enforcement and entrapment if I'm creating an AI agent that engages someone?
So again, is it a fine line? Yes, but is it a well litigated line? I would say yes. AI, whether it's an AI created persona or an undercover police or law enforcement officer taking on that persona, the line between entrapment and actually being criminal activity is it's not a clear red line, certainly, right? It's a shade, the shades of lines there. And
maybe it kind of collapses the lines a little bit, or maybe come together, Alan. Because what I'm thinking about is, I don't know that we're approaching Minority Report, but you can use AI to take information about publicly available information about people, their their social media, et cetera, and then build the persona specific to that one person. You can really
but you
personalize.
think they weren't doing that already? You think they weren't collecting public data and then
Oh, I think they're
building a
doing it,
honeypot for them?
but then you're dependent upon whoever the undercover person is,
Yeah.
their ability to emulate
Certainly,
that.
AI has made it easier to
I think
do.
it could more efficiently, effectively
Yeah, it's
emulate.
made it easier and it's probably more effective.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: it's the old story why we can't have nice things, right? This is a great technology to catch child traffickers, child pornographers, criminals, right? And who doesn't want to do that? Do we want to clean our streets and I guess our internet of criminals and these kind of scum who are doing these kinds of things? Absolutely. And AI is a great way we could use to do it. But if you don't have safeguards, if you don't have individual rights, if you don't have things like due process, you don't hold up undue search and seizures and you don't have that backbone that made America what America is. The potential for abuse here is so great, that it disqualifies all the good it does if you can't keep it in the guardrails that our Constitution and our democracy is supposed to guarantee us. And that really is the issue.
With so many protests going on weekly or even twice a week in almost every city, I think it's going to be really tempting for certain individuals and law enforcement to use this tool to infiltrate. And I'm not saying it's happening now, but I think there's a great temptation for where it will happen and it will escalate. So yes, there are great uses, but again, you can never leave well enough alone. This seems to happen with technology, not just with AI, but previously. They're just the boundaries are broken.
One of our founding fathers, I forget who said the quote, said, "Better that 100 men go free than one
No, better that
unjust."
100 guilty men go free than one innocent man goes to jail. Yeah, that's a principle of our system.
So one more thing I just realized in this discussion, and maybe I'm wrong and I'm missing something, but I think this is the first major technology shift since the .com era where the killer app wasn't porn.
Obviously, you haven't been playing with AI very much.
It's coding. It's not porn. It's coding porn.
There are
Code porn.
I not that I ever look, mind you, but there are plenty of AI porn applications.
There are. It's just when you think about it, it's just another persona, right?
Yeah, it is. Exactly. And that's one of the personas in this example here.
Yeah, I mean, they're absolutely porn is a driver of it, but
Gambling and porn. That's what built the internet. And kittens.
and
Pictures.
cats, yes. But
Yeah.
you know, again, seriously on this, we the abuse here is it's a shame because you know, can AI help us identify serial killers, kidnappers, you know, all of these kind drug dealers? But
Profiling is huge. The opportunity for profiling is but again, even if you understand what like shows like Manhunter, the history of the start of the FBI is um part of the agency that does this social profiling and behavioral profiling. What you have to understand is that it's just a baseline. It doesn't mean that somebody can't operate, and all that AI is going to do is speed that time to that profile up. May recognize, if you give it enough data, things that a human might have missed about the case, and provide additional. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the criminal themselves isn't operating or staging that persona, staging that behavior to throw police off.
Well, I think we're missing to that point, JP. There's the other side of this is you add we're talking about it as it exists today. Add agents to this, and you could very easily use AI to go out and create a persona, or in addition to an existing persona, I could go out and pick one person and say, no, they don't have a Blue Sky account. All right, let me go set one up there. The agent goes out, starts posting things. We could actually start to build something we could extort them with, or that we talk about planting evidence on someone. A nefarious person in law enforcement could do something like that to add evidence, quote unquote, against someone. So we're in a precarious position of this whole identity and what really is you and what did you really do can easily start to blur with the use of AI, because it can not only create personas, it can simulate activities and actions of those personas. And I think that's where it's going to be really difficult to untie that knot.
yeah, no, that's a great point, Mitchell. But again, let me be clear, it's not AI that's doing it. It's the person using AI.
Let's look at another angle on this as well. I find interesting, as hopefully our audience here will, and that's the cost and the overhead to doing this. We could talk about a group like Massive Blue saying they can do this for the New York Police Department, but think about the scale of that. Think about the requirements for the underlying inference engines to be able to do that in a timely fashion, right? To be able to go out and scrape all this data, and each one of those going through the LLM, doing the the inference, generating the next level of content, taking that and adding it to the memory, going back around, going out to the next, and iteratively going through somebody's Facebook, and then iteratively go and that's one person. You multiply that times what? The scale that they're promising in NYPD. I don't think we have the infrastructure to deliver this in today's market at an affordable price. So it's a great concept, but who's paying for it?
Well, first of all, that price is going down, like JP,
Well,
every day.
in 10 years, it'll be 3 cents. That's not my point, Mitch. The point is, what we're again looking at futures, and everybody's talking about them now like they're here and it's doable. That's not a scalable design in today's market without at least $500 million of overhead, annually being thrown at this at the scale of NYPD.
Well, if I'm on the criminal side, then I get bots to go compromise accounts, get free accounts on all the LLM services and do all the things I want it to do, right? I guess law enforcement could do that if they want to really act criminally as well.
Well, yeah. So I think the money from the Leo side, from the law enforcement side of the house, will be allocated, right? It will be allocated. It may take a little while, but that money is going to go into it. But Mitch, your point is a point I think well taken, which is don't think the bad guys aren't using this too, right?
So I have a hypothetical though.
Just a hypothetical. That's admissible. Go ahead, counselor.
There you go. So don't I have to have a victim to have a crime? But if the victim is an AI agent, there is no victim
You've
because the
never
AI
heard of
agent
victimless
person.
crimes?
I'm just putting it out there.
I've never heard of aliases.
So what you're really asking is, how long will it be until an AI has rights?
Or I can't indict an AI agent. So
Oh, there's inevitably there's going to be a lawsuit, right? Somebody's going to say I was entrapped by a virtual agent. That's going to come. And
yeah, but a lawyer is going to stand in court and say, well, where's the victim? I don't see any victim. Just saying.
NVIDIA's the victim.
Wasn't there a movie like this already?
Sure there was. Well, how many crime shows or movies are like some thief or victim or whatever that isn't really a person? It's some
So
alien.
a child trafficker goes online, finds this agent that's AI, and has a whole conversation with it, gets caught, goes to court, and defense argues he knew it was an AI all along.
Right. So he didn't really do it. I mean, Star Trek, Next Generation, Data. Remember there was that whole trial of, is Data a being, or can they
Sentient.
just move him along and stuff?
They question the entire series is questions on alien sentience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, but
Mhm.
Data's not an alien. Data's an AI.
Right.
Well, I look forward to the show when we're discussing that particular topic
Well,
next.
everything I need to learn about, everything I needed to know about AI, I learned watching Star Trek. So,
Right after we debate passing Kubernetes.
yeah. All right. This has descended into.
What's Data's context window? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
It's long.
All right. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang. Let's talk. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about AI coding battles. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Hey folks, we're back and talking about one of our favorite subjects again, AI coding tools. There's been a raft of them coming out lately. Everything from Elon Musk and Grok tools to OpenAI is now trying to theoretically at least buy a couple of companies in this space. I guess whatever they're currently doing, coding isn't quite living up to their expectations. At the same time, companies like Docker that people already use to build applications are now injecting AI coding capabilities into their tools. Mitch, my question to you is, will people go get new tools, or will they just wait for the tools that they currently know and are familiar with to get AI capabilities? And maybe I'm not going to need all these fancy new startups.
Grasshopper, you must snatch the pebble from my hand to get that answer. Now, to JP's point about coding being the killer app with AI, there's a couple of trajectories that, are they on a collision course? Probably. But the paths that are happening, and this is an area I spend a lot of time in the analyst business, is enhancing the current way we develop code. In other words, enhancing IDEs, either with a command line component to talk to the LLM and do vibe coding, or doing agent development or directing agents through it, whether it's GitHub agent mode, things like that. And then there's also the new IDE. Now, Windsurfer is an IDE. It looks like VS Studio or VS Code, excuse me. But effectively, it functions much like you would use Gemini or kind of any LLM type tool to generate code for you, and taking you more out of the normal kind of technical environment of an IDE. That's the whole vibe coding environment, which is just moved into a natural language type of interface. So that we're moving from generative AI was, fancy as a chatbot, then it's fancy as a Copilot. Now it's fancy as a studio product. Everybody's coming out with their studio products, whether it's Google or anyone else for that matter. I think the real challenge here is the AI companies, the open AIs of the world, the Anthropics are moving into being development tool companies, if you want to call them. They may not be just for developers, but that's essentially what they're becoming. And that's why open AI is, I think, trying to leapfrog and catch up by talking to Windsurf, potentially buying them. They'd looked at, I think it was City, another company. I don't remember which one they looked at before that.
Cursor, I think.
Oh, that's right. Brett. Yes. And so who knows where they'll buy. I think its directionality is they're becoming the next generation of software development companies in a new form, in a new format, in a new way of doing it. But that's the trajectory. Now, you talked about Docker. Docker is very much on that first path of let's take the tools, Docker Desktop, that we developers use all over the world, very, very popular type technology, and let's add not just containerization, but let's add ways of managing MCP instances of different implementations of model context protocol, because it's a nice protocol for accessing certain things, but it isn't one kind of universal server that runs for everything. So that complexity is increasing by introducing MCP across untold number of environments. So Docker stepping in and say, there's an opportunity here. Let me create a catalog for you. Let me do some AI agent integration to manage all this. So we're kind of racing down all lanes all at once. And I think there will always be sort of an IDE based, always is relative, around for things that are very much today's code centric until people start to migrate to more of the natural language interface. And we'll see if that takes over. But that's certainly what's competing for developers' eyeballs and end users for that matter.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead. Sulagna, were you going to say something?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely all these companies are launching their own set of products for development, and but I still feel like AI assisted coding is sort of a murky area. So it seems like the developers are using AI for coding in two key ways. Like first for prototyping, they start with a rough concept and get AI to generate initial code base and get a working prototype ready in hours. Not production ready, but decent for getting early feedbacks. And then there is another set of people that are using tools like a Windsurf or a Copilot and in their everyday development workflows. So these people use AI to for code completion, code generation, refactoring, and generating test documents, what have you. Basically, as a co-programmer. Both ways are good for boosting the speed of delivery as long as there is a human developer in the loop using their years of experience and knowledge to manage the outcome. And that's the only way to really keep the code maintainable. Because if they're not, which sometimes entry level developers fail to do, in that case, debugging AI generated code is a massive headache. And not to mention, it also has some major security implications. So I think it all comes down to how these companies that are building these solutions are able to address these issues, because for non-technical people who are still using AI to code, for them it's like majority of the way it kind of AI definitely helps getting to the closer to the finishing line, but that 30% of the way it's where all the pain points lie.
Fair. I look at this, right? And if you look at the whole world of things AI can do, right? Of what the potential for how it's going to change civilization. Our last segment about crime and abusing it or using it, right, for good there. We spend an inordinate amount of time about how AI works in coding. And maybe that's just because of who we are, right? We're Techstrong, DevOps.com, Cloud Native now, and we live in the tech world. And to us, the idea of AI writing code, of code writing code, is, I guess, a paramount consideration. But are we putting too much emphasis on that being what AI is for?
Well, I absolutely totally agree with this, because when you look at the work of what developers do, such little time is spent in front of a keyboard actually working on code. There are so many other tasks, and we're just talking about the individual productivity of one individual developer, of what AI does as a co-pilot that's working with them. The real advancements, I think, and this is part of what we saw with Claude 3.7 Sonnet and the Claude Code preview, and also some of the releases from GitHub, is let me take the steps for you to do these things, not just generate code, but let me write the tests. Now let me run those tests. Let me set up the environment to create all this. It's those tasks that also take time, and that's just scratching the surface. Code reviews, all of those things. A lot of time is spent on triage and understanding how these things connect together and where the issue is and which code bases it in. And it's stuff that I don't maintain. It might be elsewhere, might be an open source, whatever it is. It's the kind of full context of the code that you're working with, or the system that you're working. It could be in a config file, right? It doesn't have to be code. So that's the real work. And I think that's where the productivity is. But I think even beyond that is, if you can make a software team more productive, now you've amplified the impact of AI beyond single individuals helping their own work. It's like everybody's got a better spell checker. Well, let's talk about grammar for a moment. And that's what we need to really produce software. And that's, I think, where the real benefits of AI can make a massive difference.
I think you're spot on, but I take it one step further. I'm just dubious that all these little startups or OpenAI and Anthropic, for all the money that they have, are going to become the dominant AI coding tool vendors, because frankly, there's already people well established in that space. And none of these guys have a sustainable competitive advantage over a Microsoft or Docker or any of these people. So I'm kind of like scratching my head going, I'm looking at all this money being poured in this space, and I'm kind of saying, all these guys are going to get rolled up before you know it. And I feel like the process is already starting, but JP, you may think I'm crazy.
I I I like that there's these tools available. I mean, early on, I speak for, I think, a bunch of us. It's faster than going to Stack Overflow and looking up the answer and cut and paste. Um, I don't always like how it modifies the code, but but I'm an advanced developer who's been programming for 20 plus years, right? So I have expectations of how the code should look, um, and basically, also, you didn't write the code, so now what you find yourself doing is taking time to understand. So if I go out and I vibe code, right, and it generates a chunk of code, I don't just accept it. I have to go analyze it. I have to look through it. I have to decipher what it produced and decide if that's good or not. So you're shifting, I think, some of where your time is spent, right? You're becoming more of the analyst over the output of what these things are creating, and you're spending less time fingers on the keyboard. I think that's okay. And in fact, there's aspects of it that's really good, because if you can actually, in your head, read through code and analyze whether it's going to produce the output you want, then you have a pretty good understanding of the underlying fundamentals of the thing you're building. I think that the issue is that we're seeing, again, hyped promises of people who don't know what the heck they're doing. Look, I pressed the button, it generated this for me. Okay, great. There's a bug in it. Go fix it. I'm just going to paste the bug into the LLM and ask it to find it for me. Well, that's where hallucinations start to take over, and the results that you get are, I would say 50-50 as to whether you're getting a valid output or not. So, pros, cons, interesting development. I use it. It helped. Most of the LLMs I use still can't write any WordPress, so it's kind of fundamentally useless for me. Because it's like, all right, build my website. All right, here's some HTML. No, I don't want HTML. I want WordPress. It doesn't understand WordPress. So, with regard to what you get, is still, within a certain realm of, what's popular: JavaScript, Python, some C++, C#, if you're lucky, a little Go, some Rust, but, the more esoteric you get in the environment, the worse your results get.
All right. So, John, you want Coke, but they're only serving Pepsi. Is that it?
No, but I think here's the thing you got to remember, guys. Today's April 24th, 2025. April 25th, 2028 or 29 or 2030, you're going to look back to this day and this age and say, wow, it was really infantile then, wasn't it? It was really immature. We're not even in the gawky teenager adolescent phase yet. We're still in the baby crawling steps phase. I don't know if we've learned to walk even, right? And look
You can
at
say
all
that.
it's
You can say
doing.
that about AI in general, right, Ellen? I mean, every no matter what the topic is around AI, it's like it's just starting. It's just picking up. I mean, we're not exactly a couple of these quantum leaps.
Right, the hype machine always takes over.
When you have CEOs saying in 6 months, all 90% of the code's going to be generated by AI. No, it's not. Yeah, for one developer, maybe.
Wait, hey, Mitch, what do you think the actual percentage is going to be on if you had to make a guess?
So if you include code completion, I think you're in the probably 30 to 40% now. People use that. Maybe it's higher than that now already. When you if you're saying they're doing vibe coding and it's building all the code for you, to JP's point about, yeah, now when there's an issue, because I've used some of these tools and when there's a bug, it says, okay, I'm going to fix it. And it sits there in an infinite loop trying to fix the code that it can't figure out how to fix, right? It's still early. I think we're years away from it's doing everything. It's doing all the code, and we're just doing analysis of that. I also, what's also interesting about this industry is my view, and I'm not discounting the money that's invested in it because it is literally billions of dollars. The LLMs themselves, what's the differentiator between all of the people creating LLMs today? And how many developers have the time to go figure out, well, should I use Llama this for that? Should I go use Gemini this for that task, this kind of code? And tomorrow it's going to be different anyway, because there's going to be a new version of the next thing. So to say that those AI companies are going to become development tool companies, I kind of don't get the connection there. If all you're going to do is a vibe coding and entering natural language text and you give it a kind of a nice GUI to it, I don't think that's where it's headed. And I think as we get some true leaders in secure code, quality code, things like that start to catch on that people actually use, then you'll see some real trends and some sifting out in the market. But we're not there yet, not even close.
So, yeah. So this is an interesting. I had my my analyst hat popped on last night because I saw yet another agent development platform, AI agent development platform. It must have been now the 25th or 26th that I've seen. I mean, even when we had app servers emerge, we had 7. This is 25 of a tool. Now, as an analyst, the one thing I try to do immediately, and I've been able to do this in the past with different technologies, is identify the differentiator. And in the past, most often you could find a different angle, a different hook. Oh, I see. You're doing it a little differently than this one because you're doing X, Y, and Z. You look at all these agent development tools, and the level of differentiation is almost nil. So they're all approaching the same, problem domain from the same perspective, with the same tooling, and they're just emerging on the market like or multiplying like bunnies at Easter time,
So
right?
JP,
So
let's assume that trajectory stays the way it is, because I think it is for a while. Then the differentiator shifts to, well, who has the developers already? Now you're talking about the GitHubs and people like that, or Microsofts that
Well,
have.
GitHub is Microsoft, right? So
Well, yeah, exactly. Well,
it's who can build a
sometimes they don't think
community.
they are, but
And interestingly, N8N has one of the largest agent development communities right now in all of the AI development, and that's because they emerged as a open source tool, and they built the open source project and managed it, and built a community of people who were using this tooling, and it's an active community. It's really hard, and everybody wants to do it, to build an active community. But it really is just like finding gold. It's like you hit upon it, you got in there at the right time. It's a matter of timing. It's pure luck to some degree. Your thing caught fire, right? Why did your thing catch fire? I deployed N8N. It's okay. It's not the best. I think there's some emerging techs, and maybe those other companies will start to be recognized for what they do, but it doesn't matter. Right now, the
look,
volume is
if the
with that.
best software or best company won, we'd be using OS2 today. So let's move along. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong
Vista.
Gang.
We need to be using Vista. But
Warp.
anyway.
Remember
Oh,
the
gosh.
nuns on Warp? Anyway, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. Let's talk about digital AI twins. It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, but we'll be right back. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we're talking about, well, digital twins as advertised. And JP, I'd love to get your take on this. We have a story over on Digital CXO talking about how AI might make this methodology or technology or whatever you want to call it more accessible to more folks, because I feel like digital twins had a huge promise early on, and it works great for companies like Boeing, where I'm building some massive engine, but getting it out at the edge where the average maintenance worker has been a little more challenging. So can we push digital twins out to the edge now with a little help from AI?
First of all, digital twin conceptually is still a great way to think about how to design and build and test. And in engineering and non-engineering contexts, all right, you could create a digital twin of a city. So civil planners could be using them. The number one issue, and GE Digital, when they were around, were driving hard at this technology, enabling companies to build and deploy and manage, and it takes a lot of philosophies, and it's bringing them together. It's about componentization, and more than anything, it's about creating the physical representation in a digital form and then having it respond. Now, that is where I think the industry had difficulties implementing this technology. It's data intensive. I mean, in many regards, you were building a model, and you were building the LLM. Right now, we're learning now from the masters of creating LLMs, right? As they start to grow and get more larger and put more context through it, what it really cost, and how difficult it is to prepare the data and train it and test it, and what that all comes down to. Right now, you take that and you shrink it down on a smaller scale, and you had to do that for your digital twin. But where was your data coming from? If you were planning out how your engine was going to operate in the digital twin, great. Where is all that data coming from preferably you're loading up some sensors, you're tracking data over a period of time, you're loading that in. Great on a small scale, really difficult on a larger scale. So what AI can do now to help digital twins is that it can go and extract that data, structure that data, enable that data for to help define the twins. It's really a model creating a model. So we're using LLMs to define digital models for digital twins, and I think it makes the technology more more widely available to companies to now use, because that overhead, that data ops that was required initially, is now the overhead to get there is significantly reduced through the use of AI. So yeah, I think they are a good pairing.
Mitch, I thought you put up something on LinkedIn I saw about making it easier for for companies to create their own LLMs now. Was that you?
I don't think that was. I don't believe so.
Oh, it was
Maybe.
another Mitch.
I'll take credit for, but I'll take credit for it. No, I'm just kidding.
But it is becoming simpler to take the foundational LLMs and customize those with my own data to create what feels like a custom LLM for that specific use case. And I think, I'm seeing that in spades everywhere, especially funny enough, as we go into RSA, there must be at least a dozen companies now that are kind of doing something equivalent where they're creating an LLM for cybersecurity tasks based on an open source LLM. I think digital twins will be the same. And it might be that a vertical industry like, I don't know, retail or the airline industry might get together and create some foundational LLMs that they're going to share that are trained in their particular industry. JP, what do you think?
I've done it. I've taken on a small scale on a Mac Mini. I've trained Llama to 3.2 quantized to 4 bits, which means that I have the memory to be able to do that. As you start to as these LLMs get larger, even the quantized ones, you need more memory, right? I mean, the next level up from that's 7 gigabits. The next one up is 13 gigabits, then 48 gigabits, right? You need hardware to back this up. Not necessarily the GPU. You can do inference on CPU. It's the vector space that you're searching that needs to live in memory. So you need more available RAM to be able to really run these things at higher efficiencies. But I think you can find a nice middle ground. 13 gigabytes. You can do some PEFT on it, which means that you're actually modifying the weightings based upon your particular use case. You could do some prompt training. And between those two, even on a low end, I think you can get really good results. Cybersecurity is an interesting one for me. I actually built a SIM years ago when I was with Kinetic. We were building we were partnered, but with building a SIM for the DoD, looking at things like how do you efficiently represent and understand a low and slow attack. It is really difficult, and I'm trying to think through, is the LLM able to recognize a pattern like that? Because it's not really well known. Now it's getting better with agents, right? And you have memory, but you're watching over a long period of time, and then you're identifying that pattern. Is this something that AI is really going to be tuned to do, or is it better, something quick like, hey, I just saw 3 events. Failed login events. Is this an attack, or is this just somebody who has fat fingers? Because me, I'll miss login at least 10 times on my phone, my fat fingers. So
I think the inflection point is if we begin to see LLMs that can adjust the weights and measures in the models themselves, because that's the part that the humans do today. That's the training, if you will, that we actually do. LLMs can play a role in generating prompts, creating data, all kinds of things to help train models. But LLMs don't create other LLMs by themselves because they can't do that part of the work yet. Not saying that they won't at some point, but heuristically, how is that emulated or done?
Well, the interesting thing there, Mitch, is, I learned this recently by talking to Claude. The RAG can do this because RAG actually creates a mini vector space on the data that you just provided through the RAG. So it searches that space as if it were part of the LLM. So you don't need to go and and modify the weights. If you add a document, it will actually be able to index and search that document relative to what you're trying to achieve. So if your data is something that is raggable, is that a term now? We're raggable. If your data is raggable, then you have the opportunity to say, go out, get me the last 5,000 events from Datadog, and I want you to analyze it and tell me if you see any of this.
Unfortunately, everyone else can go see those 5,000 events too, because you've now uploaded it into,
No, Alan, we're
That's
talking
different
about
from the
doing this
model.
on your local, you're talking about doing this in your data center, right? I have a single rack with, a couple, maybe an H100 in there, just speed things up. And I have a ton of memory and a bunch of SSD or memory-based storage, right? And it's fast as anything, right? And I'm using a Reddit for my memory, for my agent. I can do pretty well, pretty locally just for that scenario.
I'll tell you what I am looking forward to, because most of the twins, the digital ones, are a reflection of some static environment, and that's helpful. But soon, I expect that I'll be able to poke at something in the digital twin, and it will change the real thing for me automatically as it connects to a bunch of AI agents and various automation frameworks. And I'm not going to have to physically go out there and do much anything.
So we came back to AI porn.
I thought you were going to go to baseball or something.
I thought we were going to baseball. Guys, I got to pull the plug. What a great show today. John, Sulagna, Mitch, JP, Mike, thanks for joining. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Remember, we've got Techstrong TV coming up right behind this with a full lineup, including AI Infrastructure Day live continuation. But until tomorrow, for Techstrong Gang, this is Alan Schimmel. Have a great day, everyone. We're out.